Hello, my name is Nicole Corbett. This is the World of Shrinking presentation for Nursing 411, and today we're going to be talking about ganja. So I have a coworker who is from Jamaica, and we always talk together about what we do here in the United States versus what she does back home. And one of the things that she was telling me about is the use of ganja tea is what she uses back home. When she told me she uses ganja tea, I was like, oh, it must be some herb that they have in Jamaica. Well, it's an herb, all right. We know it as marijuana here in the United States. So the news article I found was from the Washington Post that had marijuana legalized in 4 more states during this year's election season. And so after reading this, I went and talked to my friend more and more about ganja and how it's used in her country and told her about that, and she was quite surprised. So the rest of this presentation is going to be about that. The more I talk to her about it, she says it is something that is commonly used back in her home country for things that like de-stressing, anxiety, or as like a social activity, kind of like how here in the United States everyone kind of gets together and they kind of cook out, have beer, things like that. In her country, she says like they do that, but they'll have like ganja tea. And ganja tea can be used for things like anxiety or depression. If they had a rough day, instead of cracking open a beer, they might have some ganja tea to help them relax so they can go to sleep. I asked her about how it was used in pregnancy and labor and delivery, since I am a labor and delivery nurse, and she says it's socially not appropriate for a pregnant woman to smoke or drink marijuana while pregnant, and it was still okay after she had the baby. One of the other interesting things is that I had done a little bit of research about marijuana use, and I found some studies from the 90s that had asked women about smoking marijuana, and they found that women of lower socioeconomic status was smoking marijuana while they were pregnant in order to cope with the stressors of pregnancy, and because of gender norms, with the woman being in the house, the homemaker, and the husband being at work. They found that women who were of lower socioeconomic status were using ganja, either smoking it or drinking it while they were pregnant, because they were dealing with a lot of stressors, and they were using it in order to help prevent them from getting depression and help treat them. Ganja is very controversial here in the United States. It seems you're either in one boat or the other. You're either for it or against it. So, a fight for marijuana or ganja is that it helps people who are dealing with anxiety or depression, chronic pain, cancer patients. It all helps them to help control their pain and discomfort overall. It is also used as a social interaction to help improve camaraderie and things like that. I think it's a great drug that can be used, when used appropriately, can really have significant benefits in terms of decreasing depression symptoms, PTSD, things along those lines. It's also currently in the United States, it really is used for medical marijuana for people who are dealing with chronic pain and for cancer patients who may be dealing with a lot of nausea or having difficulty eating. They've been given marijuana, not necessarily one that has THC in it, but just some of the derivatives from the marijuana plant that can help stimulate their appetite. Now, proponents against the drug is seems to be from a lot of outdated resources. Back in the 50s, 60s, when there was a really big push against drugs in general, marijuana was reinvented as this horrendous, horrible drug. While it was already illegal from the early 19th century, it made a comeback and was stigmatized as a gateway drug. And basically it was made out to be this: if you take it, then you're going to be a drug addict and your life is going to be ruined. This continued up into the 90s, early 2000s, which is when I was growing up. Since marijuana is still considered a Schedule 1 drug by the DEA, there's still a lot of limited data that lets us research marijuana and its effects on humans. There has actually been some more substantiated evidence that says that large quantities of the drug can be detrimental to humans. In terms of overdosing, it can cause irretractable nausea and vomiting, and there has been a study in Canada that was released in August this year that had linked autism use in the first trimester of pregnancy to autism in the offspring. The interesting thing about it, though, is a lot of news articles had highlighted that, it highlighted it to say that if you take marijuana, your kid's going to have autism. But then other news articles I had found was like, maybe this may not be a bad thing, but, it's still not a great thing. I actually got to find the article after, a couple hours of searching for this article, that the study they had referenced was from 2012 to 2017, and they studied a lot of women and found that there was a 50% chance increase of developing autism in children whose mothers had smoked marijuana in the first trimester. And even that research study said more research needs to be done to determine the actual cause, and they just theorized that marijuana was a factor, and they think that there needs to be more research to determine whether or not how bad it actually does inhibit the brain development in fetuses. So my personal views on marijuana are very complex. Like I mentioned before, I grew up in the era of say no to drugs. Marijuana is a gateway drug. If you take it, you're going to become a drug addict and your life is going to end. And this was ingrained to me since I still remember being in elementary school being told marijuana is bad for you. You're gonna overdose and die if you take it. And then as I got older, when I was in the military, it was still this: don't take it, your life is gonna end, you're gonna get kicked out of the military. And so that further ingrained that, marijuana is bad for you should never use it, this and that. So in the last couple of years, I've really kind of looked at it, and I really think it has good intentions, and I think it has a lot of benefit to it. I think that there needs to be a lot more research about this drug. As much as I want to say, yeah, just go drink some ganja tea if you're ever stressed out, but there's so much unknown about this plant that we don't know the long-term effects. We don't know the short-term effects. We don't know all the short-term effects of it. Before, I always remember people saying, you can't overdose on marijuana. But, yeah, you can. You can take so much that you start vomiting and you can't stop vomiting. And no Zofran or Phenergan is going to fix it. And so that's one of the things that pulls me back and says, wait, we need to study this drug more to see what it actually does to our body. I really do believe the anecdotal evidence that there is a lot to help people who are suffering from chronic illnesses such as anxiety and depression, chronic pain. I do believe the anecdotal evidence that this is beneficial, but the dosages, routes, and other methods needs to be researched more to find the most effective form. I think it also needs to be destigmatized. There is way too much stigma about marijuana, and I'm very happy to hear that the 4 more states had legalized marijuana. And I think this is one more step that we are making to actually make marijuana legal nationwide. Currently, marijuana is legal in most states. Here in the U.S. It is not something that I would be able to incorporate for work, as it is considered a drug, and therefore would, if it was legal, it would require like a doctor's order. But I would be very happy to actually see this be able to be modified and used in the future. Maybe not now, because there's not enough research out there, but if the research is out there that shows that it's beneficial, then absolutely, if I could use this for my patients, I absolutely would. So to recap, the article I found was about how 4 states had legalized marijuana of some sort during this year's election. The article was from the Washington Post, and also the marijuana treatment that I'd found originated in Jamaica and was used for depression, PTSD, just a general anti-anxiety and de-stressor tea. We've talked about how it is controversial and how it does have benefits, even though it is very controversial. And there also are some dangers to using marijuana as well. I've also found that I have a very complex perspective on marijuana, and I would love to see my perspectives be better enhanced by seeing more and more research out there that shows how safe it actually is. And finally, that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.